Do I think consoles are doomed? Deaf, dumb, and blind. I'm about to use these words to describe Sony, Microsoft, and Nintendo. In this second episode of Beta, thanks you guys for approving the name, we're going to take a look at the console industry and how these different businesses have been managing their respective platforms. But before I get into it, I wanted to put out a little disclaimer that this is in no way directed towards gamers. This is more a critical look at the different console industry companies and how they've been managing their businesses. Now with that out of the way, let me just say that Sony as a consumer electronics business has been deaf, Microsoft dumb, and Nintendo blind. Let's start with Sony. Sony is more than just a gaming company. It's a huge conglomerate, actually, of many different businesses. The consumer electronics business, the media business, and even insurance and real estate in Japan. But over the past 6 years, Sony has just been absolutely crushed. The consumer electronics business has seen its revenues drop 50%, led by losses in TVs, cameras, and computers. Last year, Sony reported losses of $1.25 billion. Billion with a B. And in 2014, this current year, Sony is expected to lose about $500 million. So in response to this, Sony has been making a lot of changes. They've laid off about 5,000 people. They're selling off their PC business, so we're no longer going to see VAIO computers under the Sony brand itself. And the TV business is being sectioned off as a wholly owned subsidiary. Usually not a good sign. To hopefully turn things around, Sony is placing all its bets on smartphones, gaming, and its imaging technology. With smartphones, last year Sony sold about 33 million Xperia smartphones throughout the world, and is hoping to sell 50 million this current year. Its imaging technology has actually been doing really well, having placed some really smart bets with the iPhone. And we know its gaming business is doing really well, with the most successful launch in the 8th generation console war. So far, Sony has sold about 7 million consoles and hopes to sell about 10 million in 2014. But overall, Sony Electronics is a shell of the powerhouse it once was. Sony has been deaf to the changing nature of the consumer electronics industry. So my hope is going forward, Sony will pay attention to the way the PlayStation platform has been run and hopefully use that strategy to reinvigorate itself in other areas of the consumer electronics industry, because more competition is always good for us, the consumers. Now, Microsoft, as far as running its Xbox division, has been really dumb. And I mean dumb in the sense that they lost touch with their consumers and were unable to speak to the core gaming audience. But now, with new leadership in place under Phil Spencer, we see that Xbox is getting back to its roots. The company recently announced that they will be offering an Xbox One without the Kinect, saving $100 and hopefully appealing to more gamers. So it's really good to see Microsoft changing its strategy from becoming a mass market media device that required a Kinect and online subscriptions and required online connectivity in general, to becoming more just a core console device. So we see signs right now that Microsoft is opening up its ears and actually listening to the gaming community and responding in a way that gamers can relate to. And finally, this brings me to Nintendo, a company that seems to have been blind to not only the cultural traditions of its users, but also to just the incredible value that they're sitting on. Looking at the business side of things, Nintendo last year lost about $456 million and is projecting a profit of $400 million in the coming year. But Nintendo has really been overestimating the success that it expected to have ever since it launched the Wii U. In 2012, they sold about 3.5 million units, and in 2013, Nintendo was expecting to sell 9 million, but came in way under goal. But just recently, Nintendo announced that it will not be engaging in an aggressive price war, so we probably won't expect to see any major discounts. But I hope to see some interesting Wii U bundles, especially as we see a lot of new franchises coming out, like Super Smash Bros. And Mario Kart 8. But also Nintendo has been culturally blind to its users. Recently, Nintendo announced the launch of Tamagotchi Life, a simulator game for the 3DS coming out to the United States in June. But when it came out that there would be no same-sex romance allowed in the game, Nintendo was just slammed on social media. A Nintendo spokesman responded, "There haven't been similar movements in Japan." But fortunately, Nintendo came out and apologized, promising future revisions of the game to take into account same-sex romance. But really, where I see Nintendo being the most blind is in ignoring its core business model. That is, that they make great games that are compelling enough to sell hardware. So while the Wii U was really innovative and different, it was never about the hardware. It seems to me that Nintendo has been really slow to respond to the changing nature of gaming today. Casual gamers have a lot more choices with smartphones and tablets. When Nintendo launched the Wii U, a lot of emphasis was placed on the hardware, but the software was really slow to come out. It's not until just recently that now we're seeing a lot of attention placed on Super Smash Bros., Mario Kart 8, and I'm hoping for some really big announcements at E3 this year. So hopefully Nintendo opens its eyes and opens its wallet and invests more in developing its own franchises and intellectual property, because we all know that the thing that will most sell Nintendo will be its own intellectual property and franchises. But what was most interesting to me was how both Microsoft and Sony introduced their new platforms. Whenever backwards compatibility is broken and a fresh new platform is introduced, it's particularly important for tech companies to introduce things in stages. In hindsight, we see that Microsoft was just way too ambitious, and we see that Sony's strategy worked by introducing things that gamers could relate to and offer innovative technologies that they could buy into later on if they chose to. So after hearing me rant on console companies, you're probably wondering, do I think consoles are doomed? Well, actually, I hope not. For 3 reasons. First, hardware is required to sell software. I'm a big fan of supporting software developers because they're the ones who create the content that actually makes gaming interesting. The more hardware that's out there, the more opportunity for innovative game developers to create new and different gaming experiences to push the industry forward. Second, social networks. Nintendo, Microsoft, and Sony are sitting on some really healthy gaming social networks. Gaming is always more fun with friends, and the more that we share gaming, the more we can grow this industry together as a community. So I really hope that consoles are able to capitalize on this and really allow people to spread their love of gaming with others. Because the more gamers there are, the more healthy the industry is as a whole. And thirdly, computing and software in the living room is badly needed. We all know that a computer company and a software services company have been doing great things to advance mobile computing in ways that many of us wouldn't have predicted 6 or 7 years ago. But the living room is still ripe for innovation, and right now, Microsoft, a computer company, Sony, a consumer electronics company, and Nintendo, a gaming company, have a great opportunity to change the way we interact with our TVs in the living room. But of course, you guys have seen my video on Steam and Steam boxes. I see a lot of attention and excitement happening right now in the living room, and I hope consoles are able to add a voice to that. So that wraps things up for this second episode of Beta, a series that I hope will become more of a way to prepare for gaming wars and chip wars. I just want to assure you guys that I still intend on producing those shows in the same way that you guys remember. This series is really just intended as a way to get in touch with the news, latest announcements, and kind of give my more critical, editorial type, opinionated view of technology and the way these companies are being run today. I'm really grateful and humbled, really, by the response. I wasn't expecting you guys to be out there still supporting me, and I appreciate every comment, every like, every share on your social network, on Twitter. I'll be including my links. Follow me on Twitter, on Instagram. Connect with me on LinkedIn. I hope to see more of you on there. And I'll talk to you guys in the next video as we get ready for E3. And in the next video, I think we need to cover something that's really, really important. I'm going to put everything else on hold. A lot of you may have been reading a lot of stories about net neutrality. I want to try to break it down and give you guys my view on what it means for the internet, one of the biggest innovations we've ever had over the past 30 years. So stay tuned, and I'll talk to you guys in the next video.